There's another one you don't want to hear. Frankly, if you like.
One, two, three, set, go.
Right now on the Power Chord Hour, I'm very excited for this one. We are talking with returning guest to the show, Greg Eklund. And Greg, you might know, is former drummer of Everclear, a member of the band the Oohlas, also drummer of Storm Large. He's all over the place. And Greg just released his very first solo record called Muffled Tears. I love this thing. We were actually talking about it a little bit last time he was on, way before it came out. So very excited to have him back on and kind of do a follow-up to that last time and talk about the new record and everything else that Greg is up to. So, Greg, man, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, I've been very excited. So we're doing this here. What is it today? August 24th, and the album came out like 3 weeks ago. So I gotta ask you. We did kind of talk about this a little bit last time. And, at the time it seemed like you had an album, but you weren't even sure if it was coming out or not. So, I gotta ask you, like, now that it is out, how does this feel, man, having this finally out into the world?
It feels great. It's been a real fun journey to put it out and to promote it and all of that stuff, because I started this record when I first moved to Omaha. Back in 2015 or 2016. I started with the idea of, my wife had a job, so she wasn't in the house. My kids were in school, they were gone. So if I wasn't touring, I had the house to myself. So I thought, well, maybe I'll just start recording. And it didn't take this long to write all the songs. They've all been written and recorded, a couple of years ago, but I kind of called in some heavy duty favors on friends and, who are involved in much bigger projects than mine. And so I was always, calling in super favors. So I was always way down on the list. So it took a little bit of time, but I'm happy with the results. So the whole process took, 4 years. But really the actual recording of it and writing of it, because I write it as I record, was really only about 6 months, and that was in between loads of laundry and cooking dinner and stuff. So
that's really not bad. I feel like in that sense, it took like writing a normal record in terms of like writing and recording it. Then that didn't take so long.
Oh no, that was probably, that's a normal amount of time to do it, but. I did it all myself. I recorded it all myself. I played all the instruments myself. I put it out on my own record label, but I didn't have a record label, that was giving me money and said, booking studio time and all this. So because I was doing it all myself, I could do it as slow or as fast as I wanted. And, things were done when they were done. But the actual process did not take the amount of time it took to release it. So having said that, I feel great that it's out in the world now, because now I can move on to something else and not have this sort of sitting on the back burner for so long.
When did you finally realize you're going to put it out? I feel like last time we talked, like I said, I kind of felt like you were hemming and hawing about it. Maybe you did know you were going to put it out, but you didn't know when. Like, when do you think it finally clicked and you're like, okay, this is finally coming out?
Well, I was really lucky to have a guy who mixed the Oohlas record way back in 2005 or whatever. And that was home recorded as well by me. So he made it sound amazing. So I wanted him to mix this record. And, he's worked with the Foo Fighters and Nine Inch Nails and a million people, and he does his own freelance stuff, and he's fantastic. His name's James Brown. It's a crazy name, but that's his name, James Brown.
That's a great name to have.
Yeah. And so he, so it was sort of based on his time schedule. And I knew it was going to come out, but I didn't really know that it was going to come out until he sort of called out of the blue one day and goes, "Yeah, I'm almost done." And I was like, "Whoa, okay." Then it was sort of a mad scramble to try to like, well, the other thing is that it took a year just to get the vinyl made, because I placed the order and then COVID really, really hit. And, the companies that press the vinyl that, they were all shut down. And then when they started back up, they couldn't get the supplies, because of the supply chain of stuff. And then once they were up and running, they now had all the major labels that they press as well, backlog. So again, I was pushed to the way with my little 300 unit vinyl order. It was pushed way to the back. So that almost took a year just to get the vinyl made. And so I was sitting on the record because I didn't want to. I know it was like a bunch of things happened all at once, but I didn't want to release the record digitally and just be like, "Oh, the vinyl's coming soon." I wanted it to all come out at the same time. So and again, it wasn't like I had a record label that was like, "We need to release it so you can be on tour in the fall," or, Christmas season's coming up. We got to, there was none of that. So I just kind of sat on it until it was all ready to be done. And that's why it came out. But I knew it was going to be coming out. I think I was a little bit surprised at the people's reaction and how well it was received, because to me, it's a really personal record. And I had a hard time imagining that people would react to it in such a positive way. But whether they did or not, it was still I think it's an artistic statement, and it had to be put out so that it could, so the cholesterol of that record could dislodge from the veins and move on to other artistic endeavors.
It really does sound like, a very personal record, and I kind of get like the feeling from it that you would have probably recorded it either way. Like even if you recorded it and never really put it out, I feel like, I don't know, like you said, it almost seems like it was a therapeutic thing for you to make this record overall.
Yeah, yes, it has been. That in hand with the passage of time and everything else, but I really didn't set out to make a therapeutic record, and I didn't set out to make a story record or a concept record because I always hate when people do those. They always just seem really self-absorbed and bloated. But because I think we probably talked about this last time, but I don't write songs and then go record them. I record at the same time I'm writing.
Yeah, I do. I remember that. And one thing I very much remember from you is that you start with drums, don't you?
Yeah.
Which is very cool.
Yeah. I just lay down a beat or something and just start writing to that. So as these songs came into, when they started to become songs, and when they were maybe 3/4 of the way done, I realized that if I put them in order, it sort of told a story of me leaving a successful band and after years of touring and trying to come home and adjust to home life and family life. And so I didn't set out to do that. That just happened. And so, but there was some freedom in that, because if a song was only a minute long, that's what it was. Like initially I was like, gosh, it needs a chorus, or it needs a bridge, or that's not proper structure, but I would go, well, wait a minute, this little minute of music gets me to the next part of the story. So it's fine to leave it on as it is. So there was a lot of freedom in that. And there's a lot, and I think we probably talked about this before, there's a lot of freedom in giving up. Once you're not trying to actively sell records or live off money being a musician, as musicians know, there's a lot of freedom suddenly to make artistic statements. And so I never had a belief that this was going to sell 1,000 copies or 50,000 copies or 100,000 copies. So I made it the way I wanted to make it, and I was really, really happy with the results.
That's awesome. And and you would be someone too. I feel like you've kind of went through all these different ways of like releasing an album, where you have had that, where it's like albums where you have the pressure on you to release it in this X amount of time, or, major labels down your back and stuff. So, I think when someone who says that, like, oh, there's less pressure, I'm sure you would definitely know that. And with this record too, like with writing songs, and again, like I think starting with drum beats and everything, like I think that's really neat. I think it's neat that you record the ideas and stuff. But when you're writing, like, are you consistently someone who's writing, or are you more someone who have that burst of creativity where for like maybe 3 or 4 months you're just writing like a bunch of songs, and then you'll go like another 4 months and not write at all?
Both and all of what you just said. I'm sure, like most musicians, having a home recording setup, it gives you the freedom to do it however you want. I mean, I a lot of times I have probably 20, 25 hard drives that are filled with ideas that never developed
Wow.
beyond. And I still periodically go back and listen to them. So I could find something from 2003 that I wrote for the Oohlas that didn't make it further in the Oohlas process, and I'll just grab it and make something out of it now. So I can do both. I can become very, very focused on some stuff, but then I can also put things away for months or years, or forget about it or whatever, and dig it up and then go, whoa, wow, if I just cut this in half and distort it, then it's something completely different. Or then the weird thing is I'll find stuff that I don't even remember doing that I'm like, wow, that's really cool. Wow, that's an amazing drum beat or something, and I just have, no recollection.
I wrote that?
Yeah, no, I mean, seriously, like it surprises me sometimes where I'm just like, whoa, how come that didn't go any farther? Because that's really cool. In the same way that, I'm rehearsing up a band so we could do some shows in Minneapolis, and I have amazing players in the band that are just phenomenal, and I'm, they're like, what's that one part you play there? And I look at them and I go, I don't know. I just recorded it in the moment that it was recorded, and I don't know what that is. I'm like, let's figure it out together. And the one thing that I do know is that because I played all the instruments, but I don't really know how to play all the instruments. So I do know that whatever's there is usually the most simplest thing that could be played. So I have to I can figure that out, because if it's too complicated, I know that I couldn't have played it. So it's always got to be something, and it may sound really cool, and it may sound more advanced, or it might be two parts over top of each other, or some delay or distortion or something over it. But the actual part cannot be very much more than 10th grade music band stuff, like, because that's the level I'm operating at. But even operating at that level, I can do things that sound good to me. So that's the goal.
I mean, I do think it is impressive. I mean, you said it like a minute ago, but like on this record, I mean, you play everything. Like, you wrote the songs, you played them, you're singing them. Like, this is, I assume, the first time you've ever recorded an album like this where you're playing everything.
Definitely. I mean, with the Oohlas, I played a lot of stuff on the Oohla record, and I played drums on the Oohla record. I didn't want to, but because I was kind of done with drums at that point. But it was too hard to find people, so I ended up playing on that. But on the Oohlas, I sing lead on a couple songs, and Ollie and I would sing harmonies on songs, and she would sing some songs, and we would do a lot of the music and stuff ourselves. But in terms of doing everything, yeah, this is the first time I've ever done that, and it's been I don't know, everything someone does is a learning process, but I think I got better at it as the project went on. And then, like I said, I had my friend James Brown mix it, who makes me sound way better. and I don't mean digitally, like, not fixing stuff, but just because I'm recording it myself too. I'm just sticking a mic in front of a guitar amp and making sure it's not going into the red on the preamp, and so he may carve out things in the EQ world, or whatever. I don't know whatever voodoo magic he does, but all I know is that whenever he sends something to me, it's always a really fun day for me to listen to it and go, wow, this sounds amazing, because I know what I'm sending him, so it always sounds good after the fact.
Was there an instrument you would say you had the hardest time doing on this album, or was just the biggest pain in the ass to record?
No, but one thing that really helped me was for the first time sort of signing up for the like sound libraries and stuff. So all the strings and everything I did myself. So signing up and having access to string sounds or world instrument sounds or whatever via MIDI, that was fun. And it was a challenge because I'm so technically not savvy. So it was a little stressful figuring out how to make it all work. But
I mean, that's so impressive though, that you learn, like, again, like that you will jump into these things like that. That's so impressive that you're like, I don't really know it. It's like, I'm going to jump right into it.
Well, for the longest time, I would always, I'm a big believer in people, who have a skill or a devotion to a skill or a talent or a trade or whatever. I think that's amazing. But what I found is I at one point had the idea of, well, maybe I should go to engineering school just so I could learn how to record my own records. But that just seemed to delay the process. I could go, even if I took it at community college or something, or that's time I could be spent recording and writing rather than learning how to properly record something. So I think because in this process, I'm 51 now. I turned 50, sort of last year, but leading up to it, I was saying, gosh, I'm going to be 50. I don't have time anymore to go learn how to do things. I need to just do it. And so that's what I did. I mean, I figured out how to get some sort of string sound into my computer and recorded, all the string parts and the instrument orchestra parts and all that stuff. And it's the same thing with guitar. Again, I probably should have learned how to do it properly, and I probably should have learned the names of the strings, and but I would much rather spend the time writing and recording. So I'm a big believer in, people learning their trade, but I'm also a big believer in not really allowing things to get in your way, which was not always the case in my younger years. I felt like I couldn't do anything unless I learned how to do it. And at some point I just said, screw it. I'm just gonna blow forward, and just nothing's gonna stop me. So
I like that. That's a good attitude to have. I mean, I feel like that's a great way to go. Don't overthink it. If you overthink it, you're going to think of all the things that could go wrong. Just jump into it. Just do it. It's either going to work or it's not, but it's going to do nothing if you don't just go for it.
Yeah. And I think, and definitely when we've been doing these band rehearsals, and again, my guys that are playing with me are fantastic musicians, and we're sort of playing the album in order. And,
nice.
The first three songs have the exact same chord structure. They weren't written to be the first three songs, but again, going back to it, telling a story, when I put them together, those all have the same. And so I have to, I've stopped, but initially I was like, I'm really sorry. It's really simple. And, but it's simple because I can't play Joe Satriani stuff, and I'm not interested in that. So, to me, it's simple in the way that the Ramones are simple, but I love the Ramones. So, I think simple and primitive in my case works for me.
I think for a lot of, I think a lot of people, like what you just said, I mean, the Ramones, I think, one of the greatest bands of all time. You don't need a whole lot. There's not a whole lot going on there. Time and place for that. Time and place for that stuff. But that, I don't listen to Muffled Tears and go, if there would have been this guitar solo here, if you would have put this bass fill here, it would have just made it so much better. I don't think that anyone, again, time and place for it, it's I don't think it would have added anything to your music. I think you have everything that you need there. And something I'll also say to kind of compliment, like even though you said like maybe you don't know what you're doing with some of it, I also think that's how you form your own style. Like I think even with guitar, like and maybe we talked about this last time, but did you play much guitar before the Oohlas?
No, I mean, I had a guitar. I bought a guitar, you know, when I was in Everclear, and someone showed me how to do a bar chord. But that was the sort of, that was it. And then when I left Everclear, you know, there was just so much drama, and I was just tired of playing drums, and I was so associated with drums, and so I wanted to see if I could write a song. And so I started to write songs, and then the Oohlas got together, and some of those songs were used, and we started writing songs together. So before the Oohlas, no. And that was the fun thing about the Oohlas, was that it was like, well, how I was like 35 years old in the Oohlas, and all of a sudden it was like trying to figure out how to plug a guitar into an amp. You know, it was like, it was really fun for me to get back to a beginning spot. But all of us were complete beginners, but yet we created something that allowed us to be signed to Island Def Jam Records. So again, I use the Ramones analogy that it's, you know, the makeup was simple, but you know, you gotta write something that's pleasing to you.
Oh yeah, it had to sound good for them to throw money at it.
Yeah,
you know.
Well, yeah, they thought there was something there. But so yeah, I didn't start really writing songs until the Oohlas. And then and the same, like I said, the same thing sort of happened. We moved to Omaha, and there were times when I wasn't on tour and I had the house to myself. So I just thought, let me see if I can do this myself without my brother and Ollie and the Oohlas, and see if I could have some, you know, be able to critique myself as I went, to just make sure that I wasn't recording something that was terrible. And as it went on, I was like, I think this is pretty good. I stand behind this, and you know, I'm really proud of it. So
see, and that's like what I was thinking, and kind of going with it is, you know, like I think you're someone who it benefits that you kind of taught yourself and just kind of jumped in, because listening to the Oohlas and listening to the new record, you know, I can hear some similarities in like your style, where I go like, you have a style of like playing, like your guitar playing, which, you know, again, if you took lessons or like tried to go a really conventional route, maybe you'd be a really boring guitar player, where I'm like, no, this works. Like you have a sound, like there is a sound there, and it works. That, you know, again, I think people lose. I've seen friends who took music theory who kind of lost all creativity because they started thinking in a box, you know, because sometimes that happens when you try to like learn again, like conventionally. So I think it worked out for you going the route you do of just jumping into it.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I may have said this last time because it's one of my favorite quotes, but it's the Duke Ellington quote that says your sound is defined by what you can't play. So
I like that.
I can't play all those shredded guitar things. So I just try to find out some way that I can do it my way, and my way simple. But that's how I navigate that, you know. And also, I mean, my personal thing, and people may agree with me or not agree with me, but you know, like, choose a favorite band. Usually it's their first 3 records that are really good, and maybe 4, okay, but
yeah, I think you're right. A lot of bands that does tend to be.
Well, I mean, like, I love early Elvis Costello. You know, I grew up in England. He was on the radio, and he was kind of like smart man punk and like all of that. But it was kind of like, once he figured out all the chords, it became like, just like, you know, once he befriended Burt Bacharach and all that, it became something for me different than what I liked about him when he was young and learning. Once you're able to play all the jazz chords and all that stuff, or Sting, you know.
Yeah, that's a good example. You know what? That is a great example.
I love the early Police, like, or, you know, I love the Police, but especially the early Police. But, you know, now Sting is, and granted, he's got to grow as an artist too. But now that he's playing 15th century lute music, like, I'm not Me myself, I'm not personally interested in that. And then when they reformed, I was a huge Please fan, and Stuart Copeland's like my number one drummer guy, partly because he broke out of the drummer role and started scoring music and doing his own music and stuff, which almost all the drummers in my life, I realize now that I like, did that. So it was just sort of a blueprint for me to do that.
That's cool.
But when they reformed in 2008, I didn't go see them. And so I've never seen the Police, but in the concert footage I've seen, they're playing the same songs, but they're all amazing musicians now. So it seemed kind of canned, or
I know what you're saying.
It seemed too perfect. You know what I mean? Like Stewart was holding the tempo right. He wasn't speeding up, and Sting wasn't bouncing around on the stage. And, it was like, well, maybe he was, but I'm just saying, like, sonically, it sounded professional.
Yeah, I don't
fine.
like.
I mean, that's what it is. But for me, I like the early days when they weren't sure of what was going on and what they were doing, and so I don't know.
No, I agree. Like when you go see a band, like I've seen those where maybe you see them earlier on, and there's more of like an energy and stuff, and the songs aren't perfect. But there's a charm to that over trying to play to a click and trying to like really just play it straight and like, on the beat, like not screw anything up, play like precise. I don't know. I rather the I guess you'd call it youthful energy you find in that, if you will, which I mean you can have later on too, but that thing of, again, not overthinking it, like maybe not knowing it, like you said, like maybe Elvis Costello not knowing all the chords, maybe it's not the best thing that
Right.
all of these, you know what I mean? Like maybe it was
Right.
better when you only knew some of that stuff,
Yeah, but I mean, as an artist, you got to continue to grow. It's just that for me personally, and so I'm not trying to discredit Sting's 15th century lute music or Elvis's later records. I mean, I think they're amazing artists, and as an artist, you can't do the same thing over and over again. But what for me personally, I like it when the train is like two wheels are off the rail, coming around the corner, and it's a struggle. And you're that tension of like, oh no, is it going to tip over, or it's back on the rails again? Like, some of my favorite drummers are not real drummers; they're just people that taught themselves to play, and because of that, they do it all wrong. But there's a tension there that's like, oh, are they going to make it through the song? Like, oh,
I love
that. They're back there struggling, but it adds a tension to it. Whereas if you see a true talent of a drummer and pick whatever ones you want, I'm Dave Weckl or anybody. I mean, to have them sit down and play 2 and 4 it's going to be so amazingly perfect that it's dull. I would rather watch someone really struggling trying to keep it together playing 2 and 4, just because that tension is there. And I think that's what the Duke Ellington quote means to me. It's your sound is defined by what you can't play. If you can play everything, then that seems kind of boring to me. But
I love like your analogy and everything you just used, and to bring them up for the 5,000th time, the Ramones on that. I mean, I think they are struggling. Like they do sound like they just learned their instruments like a month ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there is that, and my youthful energy. There's that youthful energy to it, because it's like it's not these guys coming from Berkeley. The Ramones aren't.
No.
They're not like Berkeley trained musicians. Like I mean, Johnny Ramone. There's like a quote where he was describing power chords, but didn't know what they were because he plays bar chords, and like he didn't even really know the like proper term for a power chord. It's like these guys weren't like proficient. They knew what they needed to be the Ramones, and my God, did they do it amazingly.
Yeah, I mean that's the great thing about them, right? Is that anybody just starting to play can play those songs, but those songs, once they're in your head, they're so catchy, and they've translated around the world, but it's still just downstrokes and 3 chords, and so I get a lot of inspiration from them, because I'm just like, that's what I'm doing, downstrokes and 3 chords. So how do I make it sound like me, and it comes out sounding like me. So
I like that. Speaking of going back to the new record, are there any like specific bands or artists that you would like say influenced you on this, or like that you kind of thought of when you were trying to like figure out the sound that like that you wanted it to sound like?
Not that I wanted it to sound like. I mean, other than just the ones that I was into as a kid, but I never set out and said, "Oh, I'm going to make this sound like this." It was like going back to what we were just talking about. It's more finding inspiration in drummers to come out from behind the drums and write and record music. Stuart Copeland was one, Dave Grohl, obviously,
Probably the biggest.
Yeah, and then, but even people like Louis Perez, who was the drummer of Los Lobos, but he was also the lyricist of every one of their songs or not every one of the songs that he wrote with David Hidalgo. And at one point, in the Los Lobos have been around for 40 years or something. But
at least.
At one point, he just came out from behind the drums and they had a guy back there playing drums. So now he's out front playing guitar with the band and playing the songs that he wrote the lyrics to. So he was always, he was always a big influence. I mean, I'm a huge Los Lobos fan. So I kind of, I wouldn't say there was any sort of designation of sound saying I want it to sound like this, but I think it was just more inspiration of stepping out from behind the drums. And I mean, I don't play drums very much anymore. With Storm Large and stuff, I tour with her, or not during COVID, obviously, but while this record was going on, I tour with her and stuff. But it's not a very drum heavy performance, and so I haven't actually sat down and really played drums for quite a while, and a lot of the drums on this record are really simple. My wife's always like, "Why are your drums always really simple on your records?" It's because I don't think to try to show off on the drums, or now I don't even know if I could show off, but it's more about just writing what's for the song. And so the drums are usually really, really simple, and that's fine. I don't want the distraction of complicated drums, and the songs aren't complicated. So I don't know, maybe next record I'll do some whacked out beat stuff and something, but
like a 30-piece drum kit.
Well, yeah. Well, now that I'm old, I've got all sorts of shoulder ailments and stuff. I don't know if I could reach over to get the seventh ride that's over to that side. But
I need that seventh ride.
Yeah, the seventh ride. I can barely get around the 4-piece kit with a hi-hat ride. So I don't know. Maybe, who knows what comes down the line, and gosh, wouldn't it be great if I was still recording 30 years from now and someone's like, "You used to be better when you didn't know what you were doing," or some.
You become really proficient.
Yeah. I just start busting out like jazz chops and stuff.
Oh, that'd be great.
It won't happen. It won't happen, by the way. But.
Even full circle, it's Elvis Costello saying it to you.
Yeah, exactly. I like that stuff you used to do, but not anymore.
I wanted to ask you, I mean, I don't know that we talked about this or not last time, but I always like to kind of talk about gear, like on records. Like, I mean, do you use a lot of different stuff, or are you kind of someone like on this album, you have the one guitar that you like, you have the one bass, you have like the one amp, or did you experiment much at all with the instruments you used?
Wow, that's a good question. I've never been asked a gear question before. What do I do? I have. What did I do on this record? I have kind of a lot of stuff. I have way more guitars than I should have for being a drummer, but usually I have two main guitars. One's a G&L Blues Boy Telly.
Is that the one you played in the Oohlas? Like
yeah,
live?
that's my.
I like that Telly. I like the one from live videos. That's a nice looking Telly.
Yeah, I like it a lot too. It's so that's one, and then I have one of those 65 or 62 reissue Jazz Masters or whatever. I don't know the year, but both of those guitars were bought when the Oohlas got signed, and we had a recording budget. So they were like, "You got to spend this money, or otherwise it comes back to us or something." So we were like, "Okay." we bought a bunch of stuff. And going back to the Everclear days, you know, our art was sponsored, our Everclear was sponsored, because I think Craig was too, by Mesa Boogie amp. So somehow I ended up with like a Tremolo Verb, or Tremolo Verb? Dual rectifier Verb, whatever, the two speakers. See, I'm so terrible
The
at
dual
this stuff.
rectifier?
Yeah, but it wasn't the dual. It's not a dual rectifier. It's oh geez, what is it?
It's probably nice if it's Mesa. It's probably a nice ass amp.
It is, and I used it. I toured with that with the Oohlas because it's built like a tank. I think it's called a Tremolo Verb. It's got both reverb and tremo in it, and it's a whatever. It's got two speakers.
Oh, nice.
Everyone who's the guitar player is laughing out there right now. But I got that. But so that was on some of it. But you know, a lot of times I would use just plugins. You know, like run the guitar in and use a plugin that came with my stuff. So, oh, you know, actually, you know what's used a lot, both on the Oohlas and this record, is a little teeny like Vox Pathfinder, but like the little cheapy $100 one.
Oh, nice.
Like,
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, like well, I don't know. To me, it's not like tube or anything. It's literally like the $100 little teeny one, or I mean, you know, cereal box size or something like that. But I don't know if I've got a good one or what, but it sounds really good when you mic it up. So I use that a lot. So those were sort of the amps. I have the bass. I have two basses that I use. One is a Fender like 1970s. I don't know the year, but somewhere in the 70s.
Oh, a nice
PJ.
vintage. Nice.
Yeah, I don't think what's the year that was it, 75 or 73, whenever CBS sold it or whatever.
Yeah, I think it was like early 70s, somewhere in there.
Okay, so this might be mid 70s or something, but I bought it in Portland. It was like pretty cheap, but the guy said it was cheap because it used to be candy apple red or something, and someone in the 70s sanded it down to the bare wood.
So it's just natural.
It's natural, but I guess I've never done it, but if you take the pick art, I guess he did when he got it, there's some candy apple red or something around the edges. So it wasn't all original, or it was all original, but it wasn't the original paint job. So it was relatively cheap. But, and my brother used that live in the Oohlas. So any Oohlas footage you see is probably my brother playing that bass. And then also with the Oohlas recording budget, I bought a Fender 6 bass.
Nice.
And so a lot of times I double those two.
Nice.
Because even though I'm playing the same downstroke, root note, the two of them together make it sound really full. So those are pretty much the guitars. I guess there's some acoustic guitars and stuff in there. There was never more than 4 channels of drums because I just did overhead kick and snare. And I don't even have fancy preamps for all that. I think the drums are just going straight into my Digi 03 or whatever that unit is. So I'm just using the Pro Tools plugins, or not plugins, the preamps. But actually, midway through the process, though, I think I got on the subscription service, so I was able to put on some like Neve plugins and stuff on the tracks as they. After the fact. So, I mean, real simple. And I think there's some ukuleles and some kid toys. There's a kid keyboard on one stuff. Pretty simple. And all the orchestra stuff is all the MIDI stuff that I was talking about.
See, that's cool. I never would have assumed that was MIDI. Not at all.
Yeah, it was funny because Storm Large was here visiting, and I played her the record, and she was like, "Oh, so who'd you get to score this?" And I was like, "What do you mean score it?" And she goes, "That's you?" And I go, "Yeah." And she was like, "Wow, the sounds are so much better than they used to be." Where, someone would be like, "Zing!" That's like the string sound. It was, so, yeah, they sound much better than I guess they used to. but I same thing with like on the that stuff. I'm one finger in it, on the MIDI keyboard, and it's I'm telling you, it's way simpler than what it sounds like, or maybe not. Maybe people go, "Wow, it sounds really simple," which it is.
See, I don't think it does. Like, not to, and I'm not even saying that it sounds like super, super complex, but it's like I think it does not sound as simple as like the way you dissect it. Like, I even listening to it, I don't think it's that simple.
Yeah, well, I mean, I work in layers, so it's a bunch of simple layers that maybe add up to something that sound better. But I mean, a case in point, one of the songs called Trafalgar, which is pretty much me, just acoustic, and actually that was recorded on my phone, actually in LA before we moved to Portland, and then we moved to Omaha. So it predates the record by a long time.
Oh wow!
By a couple of years, I'd sort of written this song and had. When you write a song and then all of a sudden you got the lyrics sort of finalized and you're like, wow, okay, I want to just get it down in its form, just as a demo.
Yeah.
So you remember it. And I recorded that in my living room in Los Angeles on just my phone. So it was one mic, I played guitar and sang it live.
Oh, that is awesome.
And I was never able to better it. I tried to better it and I couldn't. And that's why, like, in the beginning, there's like a siren going on because right then there was a cop car going by. But the orchestral thing in the middle of that is my wife was in the kitchen and she turned on the blender to make a smoothie while I was recording. So in the middle of the song, not hugely loudly, and you can still hear it now through the orchestra, but at some point he went,
I have to listen for this now.
Yeah, so I was like, well, geez, I got to cover that up. Oh, I'll write an orchestral little thing for it and put it in there. And that's but if you listen real carefully, you can still hear her in the background. Like, so.
You got to give her writing credit.
Hey, no, don't mention that. No. But that's sort of, that's about as much pre-thought as goes into some of this stuff. Like just, I've got to cover that up, so I'm going to put a little piece in there. I
love that though, because hopefully people hear this too, who because maybe the other thing you're doing too is people who are like, people who are like interested in doing music who are just intimidating or just starting out, where it's like, no, jump into it. Like, you don't have to know everything. Like, jump in and do these things. You don't need a lot to make an album or write songs. Like, just use what you know and go from there. It will work out. Exactly.
I would love to climb a mountain and yell that out to everybody because I'm a case in point. But, like I said, I was intimidated early on. I couldn't do this properly and I can't do this properly and I can't. But at some point, maybe that comes with age, but I was just like, screw it. I'm just going to, move forward on it. And that's what worked. And the same sort of thing with the one song on there, Until Tomorrow. I kind of written this little piano thing that was kind of cool, but I couldn't kind of find any words for it. And I just thought, well, shoot, I'm going to go pull up some home movies. And I just scrubbed the audio from it of my kids and my wife, and when my kids were babies and all of this stuff. And so I just put the audio over top of the piano part and it was perfect. I don't know if that qualifies as a song or not, but
I feel like it's a good sequence in between songs. I feel like it's a good transition. Like, it works really well with the album as a whole.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another example of like just moving the story forward, to the next spot. The same thing with Away, I think that's like a minute and a half long. That was one of those songs where I was initially trying to, I really liked the little part that I had. And so I was trying to like shoehorn it into a bigger song and it just wasn't working. So I said, well, the minute and a half I got is pretty good. So that's the song, moving on to the next one. Like, and so that helps get to the next part of the story too. So, in this particular case, stuff like that works in this narrative. If the songs weren't related, maybe not, or maybe they don't have to be related, or maybe you just write a minute and a half long song. Who cares?
Yeah, I mean, like that's the other thing. I think it could still work in that capacity. Like if you wrote another album and it wasn't a concept album, but you still just kind of wrote it with those ideas in mind, I totally think that could still work. You go, the song doesn't need, maybe it is only 2 minutes, but guess what? That's all it needs to be. If it's good, it's good.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. Exactly. Well, I mean, I had a CD way back in the day that I used to listen to, like touring with Everclear. There was they were basically field recordings of white musicians sort of playing African American blues stuff, but so it was like white man blues, but it was poor country blues. But a lot of them were like field recordings and stuff. So there was one song where there's this great guitar. There's no singing. It's just this guy playing guitar, and in the middle of the song he stops and he's like, starts talking, sort of like, well, we're just breaking it down here in room 57 in the St. Andrews Hotel on 50 whatever street or whatever, and then started back up again. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. This is a guy literally just playing in a hotel room. And so that seems pretty cool to me. So
that is awesome.
If I can generate something, that has my wife making a blender smoothie in the background, and there's it's an artistic statement. So yeah, I felt use that to feel very free to move however I wanted to go.
Do you think then that you will kind of continue, like when it comes to, and whenever it is, obviously this just came out, but I mean, like, do you feel like you'll take that approach more now when writing albums? Just that kind of, you already have the jump in attitude, but that real, like, you just kind of go with the flow. It doesn't need to be a whole lot of something. It's like, if it works, it works. Like, do you feel like you've learned some like things from recording this one you'll bring to like future recordings?
Absolutely. And but I think the big thing is that again, I'm not trying to write for a pop radio format or anything. I mean, that if I could only write my songs, but I was trying to write for Billie Eilish or whatever, like, I would be an extremely frustrated person. But once you give up that, it's real freeing. And so yeah, I think I broke through for me personally as an artist on this record, and who knows what the next one's gonna be. We'll see. But I think, well, the other thing is too, is I made a bunch of videos for this record too, and it was like, gosh, I should have gone to film school so I could learn how to make a video. But I just said, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to film something, and or grab a bunch of stuff. And again, it's not, there's no MTV anymore, so it doesn't have to be up to a certain level of production.
Yeah.
And again, this is a personal record, so it's real easy to make personal videos. But again, that was just a whole nother thing where I didn't really know how to do it, but I just figured I was going to jump in and do it. And so, yeah, on YouTube, where do I have him? I think I have him at He's Just the Drummer. Type in He's Just the Drummer on YouTube, I think, and they'll show up. Or,
yeah, I think you're right. I've seen two. I saw the one for She Came and the first one you did.
For Liberation.
Yes, that was the other one I saw. Yeah, both of those are on your YouTube page for sure, because that's where I've seen them.
Okay.
But
yeah, that's the other thing I'm terrible at, is like social media and promoting and all of that stuff. It's like, that's like pulling teeth for me. It drives me crazy. I think partly, well, I have a million reasons to blame, but I won't.
But I mean, kind of going to what we're talking about right now. But I mean, like, being someone who's been at it for so long, I mean, even go back 20 years ago. Like, if you're talking to yourself 20 years ago, you're talking about all these things that, like, you can now release an album. And like you said, there's no real gatekeeping with MTV. You can just put out a video on YouTube. Doesn't really matter. Like, you can record a record how you want. You can put an album out without major labels. Like, you can do all these things. Like, do you ever take a step back and look at that and, like, does that blow your mind? Because you really did come from an era of, you kind of need those labels. You kind of do need, like major labels and radio airplay and all that stuff were important. And now it's like, I mean, yeah, those things exist, but you really don't need them anymore if you don't want them. Like there's not just one route you have to take anymore. There's many, many routes that were never there before.
Oh, completely. It's a different world now. But all of those radio reps and promoters and art designers and video guys and A&R people, they're all there to get your product sold. So it only works as long as you've got product to sell. And when that all, again, going back to once you give up trying to do that, there's a lot of freedom. I don't know. It's partly talking about this. I'm doing this documentary on this Minnesota drummer, and I'm collecting all the vinyl and stuff that he did, and it's independent records. These guys went into a basement in rural Minnesota and recorded these records for sale, and they would sell them at their dances and stuff, and they would do really well, but none of them ended up on a radio or anything like that. I'm drawing, and I don't know, I'm kind of free thinking here, but I draw from a lot of inspiration in different things. And for me, coming from the old way of doing it, where you get signed and then the expectation is you got to produce this product that they can sell, and they have all these people that are paid to make it happen. And as soon as you stop selling, you get dropped, and that's the end of that story. Once you give that all up, it's really freeing as an artist. And I don't have any aspirations of trying to sell 1 million records. I think about the closest thing you can maybe want is, maybe to get a piece of music in a film or a commercial or something like that. That would be the dream at this point.
See, that's good.
Any music supervisors out there can contact me.
But I mean, like, that's and kind of like we were talking about earlier, that I said would probably be good for young musicians, like that, use what you have. You don't have to be the greatest. Is also that you don't have to jump into music trying to because really, who is selling 1 million records anymore? Like, even that stuff has changed. It's like, you don't have to go in with your goals being fame and fortune. Like, you can go in and your goals can be like many other things. Like, your goals can just be getting an album out. Just, it doesn't matter if one person hears it or 1 million hears it. Like, that itself can be a goal, a satisfying goal of just getting your music out in the first place.
Yep. And in today's world, it can be done for pennies on the dollar of what it all used to cost.
It's mind blowing.
Actually, well, I mean, I had the recording equipment myself, and I begged, borrowed, and called in some favors and stuff. But really, the biggest cost of the record was printing vinyl. So even if you don't print vinyl, the digital world, you don't need to do that. I'm old school, and I wanted to print vinyl, and this project was special to me because it's so personal. So I wanted to. But I mean, people just load up stuff all the time onto iTunes or whatever. Constant new. Not even like albums, but just singles now.
Singles are huge. There's artists who I don't even think put out full lengths. They'll just put out a single every couple months. Like, it's not even an album anymore. Yeah,
and I think in this process I've learned a bunch. Like, I use DistroKid to upload to iTunes, and it's back in those days, not even back in the old days, but just, a couple of years ago, there were only certain companies that held access into getting your music onto digital formats. And so suddenly, like, whatever the fee was, you can upload as much new music as you want. That was inspiring to me because, it takes a while to do a whole nother album again. But I was like, wow, I could literally just be throwing up singles here and there whenever something gets completed. So
totally.
Even within my process, I'm learning that I can streamline and shorten it and get it out there anyway.
That's really rad. I feel like you've this has really been like doing Muffled Tears. I feel like has been really good for you in a lot of different ways. And I like where you learn too, like that you'll continue learning. You're not one of those people where it's like it's this one way. It's like, no, things change. Like, you adapt with it, and you seem to adapt well, which I think is something you have to do in the music industry. Like, you have to learn to adapt because it changes constantly.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, you make me sound way more like self-visualized than I am. I mean,
Sorry.
no, I like it. I'm starting to see myself that way based off of what you're saying. But, there's that side, and then there's also the old man side of yelling, "Get off my lawn!" Like,
Gotta have the yin and yang.
you got to have the yin and these kids today. But again, this record was done in between loads of laundry and cooking dinners, and really, because it took so long to do, I was away, and so to suddenly pop up, the whole thing has been a learning experience for sure. And it's moving forward, I look forward to the new music that I'll be writing and recording.
That is awesome. Going back to, I know you've mentioned a live band, which is very cool, because I was going to ask you, if you had plans of playing this stuff live. It obviously sounds like you do. How long have you been playing with them now? How long have you had them assembled?
Well, we've actually had only a couple of rehearsals. The story, though, was that back in March of last year. Last year, not this year. Boy, I don't even know what year we're in. March last year. That was when the record started to get mixed. So I kind of said, "Gosh, I should maybe put a band together to do some shows, for release or whatever." And so I got this great band together, and we met to rehearse, and we did. And it was like, "This is great." Everyone was like, "Yeah, these songs are great. Really like your record." And I apologized a bunch for it being a simple record, but they were all into it. And I was like, so they said, "Great." It was like Thursday night. They're like, let's rehearse again next Thursday. And I go, "Okay." And then the governor shut down the state because of COVID in between that week.
Oh, shit.
So we didn't have another rehearsal for a year and a half.
Oh,
then,
wow.
Well, the great thing is there was no shows to play either. But
True.
Oh, and that was another part of it. Like, there was no rush for me to say, "Hey, James Brown, can you mix this faster?" Because everything was shut down. There were no shows. There was nothing to play. So that was another thing that kind of stalled the process. But there was no sort of incentive to try to rush it because there was nothing to do.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah, and then so a month and a half ago or 2 months ago, actually, once the vaccine started coming out, I contacted the guys again and said, "Tell me how y'all are feeling. If you don't want to do it, I totally understand." But and everybody said, "Yeah, let's do it." So we've had like 3 practices, and I've got this guy Scott McPherson playing drums, who I first met when I was trying to find an Oohlas drummer. And I gave him an Oohlas CD. We both lived in LA at the time, and I gave him an Oohlas CD, and he loved the Oohlas CD, but he was touring with like Beck and like,
oh, nice.
Like M. Ward, and like he used to play with Elliott Smith. Like,
nice.
He's kind of badass. So he was like, "I love your record, but I can't tour with you and make $20 a night and 2 drink tickets." Like, he had other more important gigs. So, and then at some point he moved to Portland, or back to Portland, and then I moved to Portland. So when we ran into each other in Portland, I said, "Hey, would you maybe want to do some stuff?" And he said yes, but then that didn't happen. And so finally we both ended up in Minneapolis. And so I called him and I said, "Dude, it's been 15 years that I've been chasing you around 3 different cities. Can we play?" And he goes, "Yes." So he plays drums. A guy, Casey Barak, who plays with or whose band is
Porcupine.
Oh,
yeah. I love Porcupine. I saw them a few times in Minneapolis when I lived up there. They're great.
Yeah, they're great. He's playing guitar.
Oh, nice. He's a solid guitar player too.
Oh, he's amazing. And I'm so lucky that these guys said yes to it. He used to play in a band called Space Bike that from La Crosse, Wisconsin, that Everclear, when we would come through the Midwest in the early bar days, would always play with them. And so he and I had known each other for a long time. Although I didn't know he was in Minneapolis. He worked at Twin Town Guitars, Twin Town.
Oh, is it Twin Tone?
Twin Tone. I always get it wrong. I see town. Yeah, Twin Tone. And I walked in there and we just stared at each other for a second and we're like, holy shit, you live here? Wow, he's like, what are you doing here? And I was like, I just moved here. So he was another guy that said yes. So I was really glad about that. And actually, I'm working on some drums for the new Porcupine record with him.
I was actually going to ask you if you could say anything, because I saw you posted a picture of you doing some percussion the other day. And I love Porcupine, so I got really stoked when I saw that. And I didn't know if you could talk about it or not.
Well, I don't know if I can either. Actually, I said I contacted Casey and I said I'm going to put this online. Is that okay? And he said, yeah. He gave me a song or two to sort of work on and play, and I'm coming up with some really cool stuff, I think. But of course, we'll see if it makes it through the process, because I think he's bringing in a bunch of people to play on the new record. So I don't know what all that is, but he's playing guitar for me. And then I got another guy, Chad, who was recommended from by Casey on bass, and so it's like a great band. You know, the idea is not to tour or anything, because we all have families and projects and stuff. It was just to play around town or the Midwest, and you know, do that, and to just sort of support the record. And you know, for me, it's fun to play guitar and try to sing live.
I was going to say, you'll be playing rhythm guitar then and singing?
Yeah, sure.
Nice. Yeah, sure.
Well, like I said earlier, those conversations with, you know, are Casey going, hey, what are you playing here? What is this lick? I was like, I don't know. And then, of course, he's so badass he can figure it out. But I'm throwing a lot at those guys, saying, I don't know, can you please make it sound really cool, because I'm really just trying to play guitar and sing, you know. And I need you guys to pick up the slack on everything else. And of course, they're all amazing, so they can do that. So
I feel like you can throw it on him, because Porcupine's just a 3-piece, so he's the only guitar playing there anyway. So it's like you can I feel like you can throw that at him. Like, you can do rhythm and lead, dude. Like, you take the brunt of this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I definitely need a band that can do that, because I'm just trying to play the bass chords and trying to sing and play at the same time, which I haven't done since the Oohlas, so that was a while ago. But they're amazing guys, and you know, we're all about the same age, and you know, we all yell, "Get off my lawn!"
in unison.
Yeah. If anyone young walks by, we're like, "Get off our lawn!"
That is really exciting to hear, and the Porcupine thing too, because I love them, and I feel like you're in a good place, because I mean, not just playing there, but like with Minneapolis, you're not too far away from like a few other Midwest cities. Like, you can go over to Chicago, like that's doable. You go to Madison, like there's a few places like in Wisconsin you could hit, and you can do all that shit in like weekends if you want to. Yeah.
And we'll see how it goes. I mean, you know, who knows with everything going on now, we may be shut down.
That's true. That's true. You know, that's a good point.
That'll just be, you know, exactly the case of this band, is that we get together again and they shut everything down. But I mean, you know, Casey, Porcupine's a big thing. Scott's got a business and a family, so you know, it would be one night, you know, tops. And like, again, I'm not signed or on any major label or anything, so there's no sort of support to go that way. But we just like getting together and playing the music, and I'm lucky enough to have those guys dig my record and want to work with me, and that's a good feeling. So
that is awesome. I wanted to ask you too. You brought it up a second ago earlier, but last time you were on, you were talking about that documentary you're working on a little bit. Extremely interesting. I mean, have you gotten to do much else since we last talked? Like, has there been more progress on the film?
There has. You know, COVID was happening, so that, you know, that delayed it. But I'm in the process of finishing up the interviews for it, and I brought on. I had one producer in the beginning, and I brought in a new producer, so now I have two producers. And you know, again, never having made a documentary film before, and again with that idea of, well, geez, I should take a film class. Oh no, I'm not going to waste the time. I'm just going to do it. We've just been barreling forward on this, and so this new producer that I brought in is a little more savvy in documentaries, and she's worked in reality TV and stuff. So I kind of played her everything I shot, and just to ask her if it was sort of up to snuff, quality wise, because it's just me with a GoPro, just like, and she said, yeah, we can, I just wanted to make sure we could use it. And she was like, this is great. It obviously tells a story that you've never made a film before, but that's the beauty of it, right? Let's go back to Duke Ellington again.
Yeah. It's part of the charm of it all.
Yeah. So she's like, that's what it is. It's you holding a GoPro and interviewing people. It's obviously not a 14-person film crew, but that's not what you're making, and that's not what you're doing. So it tells your story during this process. And so I'm just moving forward on that. My idea is to get all the interviews done by the winter, so that we can hunker down through the winter and start piecing it together. But COVID put us a year behind schedule with what I wanted to do with it. A lot of the people I'm interviewing are older, and COVID just shut down most of that. So we're about a year behind. But again, 20th Century Fox is not like, we need it now.
They're not knocking down your door.
Yeah, I can take all the time I want, because it's not like I'm submitting it to Cannes next year or whatever. So that's time is luxury, but that's all I got. There's plenty of time.
That's exciting. I mean, like it really it does sound extremely intriguing. Like I think it will be a very interesting. I really want to see it all put together. Like, do you want it for people who didn't? We've talked about it a little bit, but like for people who maybe didn't listen to the last one, like you don't have to give a lot away, but like you want to give just a little summary of like what it's about. Yeah,
well, basically, when I moved to Minneapolis 3 years ago, there's a guitar store near my house called Encore Music. And one day when I was taking a break from unpacking all of our boxes and stuff, I went over there, and, it's a guitar store, but I like to go into guitar stores. And in the guitar store in the back, buried under a bunch of stuff, was a bass drum. And on the bass drum, I pulled it out, and I collect old vintage big bass drums, especially if they have graphic designs on them. And this one said Cliff Hermel, St. Peter, Minnesota, the Black Knights. And so I bought it and came home and typed in those three words, Cliff Hermel, the Black Knights, and St. Peter. And it turns out that Cliff Hermel owned the Gibbon Ballroom, which is about an hour and 20 minutes southwest of Minneapolis. And it was a ballroom complex. It was a big, huge building that had 4 or 5 separate stages. Oh, wow. And every year he would have a polka festival starting in the early 70s, where, and I've been researching this, and it's been a confirmed number. One of the years they had like 30,000 people.
Oh my God.
Come to this polka event, all in RVs, and they all camped. And it's Gibbon is this tiny town of like, I don't know, 600 people or something. But once a year for a week, the whole thing would be completely overrun by polka people coming to polka. And it would be 12 hours a day on 4 or 5 different bandstands for a week.
Wow.
It was called the Granddaddy of them all. And so he ran that, but then he also ran 2 youth drum corps things in the city of St. Peter, Minnesota. And he was a World War II vet. And so anyway, I was learning all this stuff, and one of the pictures that showed up online, and people can search this when they type it in, was the Gibbon Ballroom. There was a picture that was taken in 1975 of one of the bars in the Gibbon complex, and behind the bar, as a visual thing, they had 3 bass drums mounted on the wall behind the bar. One of the bass drums was the bass drum I had just bought. So I thought to myself, wow, wouldn't it be cool if I could, it's 75, so it was 45 years ago or whatever. Wouldn't it be cool if I could try to locate the other 2 bass drums so I could reunite the bass drums? But then the next, when you hit next in the photos online, like I hit next, and the next photo was the same shot, but the person had backed up 40 feet or something. And so behind the bar was actually 13 bass drums hung on the wall.
Oh, geez.
And I went, oh man, I don't know if I can find all those. So it became like I'm a history freak. And like I said, I collect big bass drums with designs on them. And so I started dragging my 10-year-old kid around with me through these tiny towns in rural Minnesota, trying to find out information about these drums, because I wanted to try to reunite them if I could. And it turns out pretty quickly I was able to reunite them all, because they were all bought by people as remembrances, or to remember Cliff by when he passed, when his estate had their auction or estate sale. So the documentary basically is my story of trying to locate these bass drums, and once I've located them, reuniting them with my bass drum. And in the meantime, it's also telling the story of Cliff and his family in rural Minnesota, and polka, and all these other stories that are all tied into it. But it all started with me just buying a bass drum in a guitar store, and that was the beginning of it. And when I was having production meetings with one of the producer ladies, she said later, the first thing you ever said to me about this project? And I said, no. And she said, the very first thing you said to me was, I never set out to make a documentary. I just bought a bass drum. She goes, that's the first thing you said. And I go, well, that's what this story is. So that's what the story has become. And I still, like I said, I still have a couple interviews. Cliff died in 1999. So, and actually his brother just died a couple weeks ago. So I've become friends with these people, and some of the people that played with him, and some of the people that played in his ballroom. And, it's been an amazing story. It's like an onion, unpeeling an onion. There's a lot of different things going on, but the challenge is going to be, how do we put it into a coherent story? But I think it will probably be the story of buying a bass drum and just trying to move on from and tell the story of all these things all at the same time. So again, never made a documentary before, but but I'm just jumping.
But here we are.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not letting it stop me, so I'm moving forward on it.
I love it. Like, I really like that whole, like, you don't have to know anything about polka. You don't need to be a polka fan. Like, that whole story just sounds intriguing. Like, everything about it sounds very interesting, and kind of learning the history of someone who, like you mentioned earlier, it's like was prominent in this within this little sliver. Like, maybe people from outside of that town in Minnesota don't know him, but my God, like you said, if one year they had like 30,000 people there, like, he was definitely beloved by some people there, So
yeah,
that is very cool.
Yeah, within polka circles, people came from all over the United States and even the world to come to this polka event.
That's so cool.
People within the polka community knew him, but the other thing that's in the story is that those people in that polka community are older now, and they're passing. So it's like, and there is a younger polka thing happening, but it's never going to be to the popularity that it
once was. Like, probably like the 30,000.
Yeah, and that wasn't every year, but that was like the biggest year. And but it's a historical context too, because you're talking in the 1970s, sort of the heyday of early 60s, or mid to late 60s into the 70s. Those were the heyday of polka. But one of the reasons you have to look at historically is that these were all men coming home from World War II in the 50s and had survived and wanted to have families and wanted to have a good time, and they're all hardworking farmers or whatever. And on the Friday or the Saturday night, they will, want to go to the ballroom and drink some beer and talk to their friends and families and stuff. And so, there's a historical context within a lot of this stuff too. And a lot of those people are passing now, because, that's the last of the greatest generation. So, it's a little bit of a rush trying to tell the story, but I've been able to talk to people and interview people, and it's been another learning process. learning. And we haven't even gotten into editing it and piecing it all together. I've been just, any chance I've gotten, I've been taking my camera out into these rural towns and interviewing as many people and talking to as many people that knew him or any of the things about the ballrooms or, all of that stuff as I could. And because again, I would rather have too much than too little. I just shoot everything and then, we'll decide what stays as it goes. But
Oh, for sure. I think that I feel like that always is the case, including like a documentary where like you film like hours and you can film like 100 hours worth of footage to condense it down to like a 90-minute feature.
Yeah,
it's
always better to have way too much because you can always cut it down than to have way too little.
No, that is very true. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see where you go with that. So you'll plan on then doing all like. You're gonna have your hand in everything when it does come to editing and all that too, right? You're gonna do part of that and all that too.
Well, I'm gonna do what we call the Eklund handoff. Same thing with someone mixing my record. Like, I need to find like a real editor. But yeah, of course I'll be involved in all of it. But I don't know the mechanics. I mean, I can do some real basic. It's like me in Pro Tools. I can do some real basic editing, in a film editing program, but I'm going to get somebody that really knows what they're doing to do that. And I mean, my dream is that when the film is done and we debut it, and I've talked to everybody that I found that has the bass drums, but they've all given their permission to have the bass drums like in the lobby for the premiere.
Oh, nice.
So the lobby would be filled with all the drums from the movies, and and I have a lot of grand ideas, when we get closer to the end of that project. And I've never made a film, so I don't know what the end of the project looks like. But we'll get there eventually. It'll probably take way longer than we expected, but we'll get there. And when it's done, I'll be really proud of it.
That's awesome. And another one I want to ask, because another thing we were talking about last time we were on here, new Oohlas record. Has there been any more progress on that?
Oh, that was another Oohlas or another COVID casualty. Ollie came out.
COVID got you for a lot of things. You were a busy man when I talked to you, and then it all just kind of like brick walled you.
It all went away, yeah. Because Ollie and I, we'd gotten a pretty good start on some new songs, and then she flew home to LA, and actually I remember she was kind of concerned whether she would be able to get into LA because they were talking about how the city was literally going to shut down.
Oh yeah, those early days.
Yeah, early days, like air traffic and stuff. So she and I are still talking, and we sort of thought about, well, we could do it, long distance and stuff. But the way we work is better if we're just in the room together. So that's on hold. But hopefully we'll get around to that at some point.
I feel like that's for the better if you're like, no, I think this will be better if we're in the same room. Like it's probably just better to wait because it's like, the album might suffer from, I feel like a lot of, some bands can do that, but there's been a lot of bands where they're like, yeah, we did this in like 3 separate studios. And you're like, yeah, it sounds like it. Like, it sounds like you all wrote separately. So yeah. I would rather, I don't know, as a fan, I'd rather a really solid record and wait than a rushed record that, was made like just throwing ideas back and forth.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's not even, for me, it's not even a sonic thing. It's just that she and I have such fun together. She's like my little sister, and, we've been involved with each other in the Oohlas for a long time. So it's probably more selfish or just sort of having fun and doing all that. And again, there's no record label saying we need a record. So we can again take as long as we want. And she just put out a record. When she joined the Oohlas, she didn't know how to plug in a guitar either, and maybe she had written songs at home, I don't know, but we both learned together. And the great thing about her record is that she recorded it herself. I think she mixed it herself. Like,
oh wow.
Like she did everything, and so I'm really proud of her, and it's great. And her videos and stuff are amazing. And she does the video work too. Like she's amazing. I mean, she can sing, she can write songs. With everything she, it used to be the Oohlas were sort of the big thing for us, but with her doing video work and all this other stuff and her own solo career stuff, the Oohlas are a fun little side project, for her.
That's cool though. It sounds like she did like you did, where it's like you just kind of jump in and do these things. You learn.
She exactly said the same thing. She's like, I ain't got no money to pay anybody to do it, and so I'm just going to teach myself. And we live in the YouTube age where you can watch hundreds of YouTube videos and learn how to do anything.
Oh, totally.
So I think she just learned how to mix your record. And, like, she did it. So yeah, I'm embarrassed that my brain is farting right now on her.
I mean, again, people will just Google search the name. I'm sure you'll find the album. She is great. Yeah. She is great in the Oohlas too. And I'd heard a few songs before, like I was aware of the Oohlas, but started listening a lot more after our last interview. And yeah, really solid stuff in there. And I mean, you as well. She has a great voice too in there. I think it works really well with like the whole sound of the band. I think her voice like works perfectly for that music.
Yep. And that was out of left field. And, when we just started writing songs, I think she and my brother were dating, I think, when we first met. So he was like, yeah, my girlfriend writes songs. And who knew that it was going to work out? And she may have just turned 21. So she was pretty young, but I love her voice and I love her song. She's got a really weird way of writing where none of her words rhyme, and yet it fits. It all works, so I'm always, at least in the Oohlas, I'd always be like, that's not how you do it. But whatever she came up with was way better than how you were supposed to do it. So, it was like, I'm not going to mess with that. That's
hey, if it sounds good, then who cares if it doesn't make, if it's like the unconventional way or whatever.
Right. Exactly.
But
that's how I move forward. That's how we do it.
It's not bad. I mean, I look at you and really like, I think if there's anything to take away is like, just do it. Like, just do it and see what happens. You learn things, you end up getting something out of it. It's not like a nightmare. It might be scary in the beginning, but that's just how it is. I mean, sometimes the scarier the better. It means you should do it, because then once you overcome it, you get something out of it.
Exactly.
You seem like someone who's still like, even now, it's like you're still learning stuff. You're still into that. You're not like, well, because some people are like, oh, I learned it one way, and then you're like mad when things change or it's not that way anymore. It's like, no, like you just, that's what you do. That's just how it works. Does it suck sometimes? Yeah, sure. It'd be great if it all worked one way, but it doesn't, and you just got to kind of jump in and just do things. So I think that's what I learned and stuff talking with you, which I always like. I think more people need to have that, because a lot of people don't. They're just like, nah, it might, they just think of it if it fails,
Yeah.
But
well, I would recommend people do that. Don't wait until you're 50 like I did. Just start early. Just start early and jump in and do whatever you want to do.
Going back to Muffled Tears, it is it is a personal record. It is, it's obviously about your life and everything, like we talked about that. But could you ever see yourself making another album like this, or is this something you do it the one time, you got it off your chest and you're good? Like, could you ever see yourself writing in this kind of way, in this concept ever again?
Yes, because I've already started.
That answers that.
That answers that. Again, I don't want to be just making story albums or concept albums or whatever these things are. But after this was finished a couple of years ago, the songs I was started to write again were songs based around my childhood growing up in England. So I was like, oh no, here's another record.
I thought I just did this.
So I haven't, I've taken a break from it for a while, just so I can, finish up this and other things. But I don't know if it'll come out that way. But I probably have 5 or 6 songs. That sort of do the same thing about growing up in England.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, we'll see how that all ends up. But I don't know. I can't control it what comes out. So
that makes sense.
It would be interesting if I could write a record of just independent songs. Maybe I'll do that someday. But I don't know. If not, that's just what I do, and so I don't know. Again, I'm not going to put pressure on myself to put out to do that. It's just going to, whatever happens.
I think that's awesome, because I really wasn't sure. Like, I mean, like I said, it is kind of a therapeutic thing and it's something to do, but I was like, is it something you only do once? But no, you do it again, which I thought it worked in Muffled Tears. So I'm excited to see how it happens the next time, which I got to say, I mean, 5 songs, hell, that's almost half an album. So I feel like you're fairly deep in there.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I was like, well, maybe it only needs to be 5 songs. Maybe it's EP or whatever that means now. Does EP even matter? Does, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Oh no, that's like, we were talking about singles. I mean, hell, you could release a song every month. I mean, you could do things like that even.
Yeah. So I don't know. Well, I've taken almost a year away from them, so I got to kind of come back and see where they're at and see if I have inspiration to write more that would make it a complete album, or maybe it's just 4 related songs on a bigger album of other songs that aren't related. I don't know. We'll see where it all falls.
Either way, you're staying creative. Like, it seems like you're staying pretty busy on all fronts. Like, you may not be touring, but like, you're doing a lot at home. You're keeping very busy.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, that's the way to go.
Yeah.
I wish I could have done more during the COVID year off here, but when it first happened, I thought it was kind of going to be like a month or 2,
Oh yeah, I think everyone did.
Yeah, if I knew it was going to be as long as it would have, I would have signed up for college courses, or I would have, spent more time recording, or something. But it just kind of
kept
like
going and going.
Yeah, exactly. And I haven't played a show in, almost 2 years. So,
oh wow.
Yeah, and Storm hasn't got anything on the books at the moment. So, it just gave me time to try other things, move on to other things, and focus on other things. And it's a little weird after touring for 30 years of my life. It was a little weird not, to be at home.
Oh, I'd imagine after all that time.
Yeah, and just sort of look at my kids and go, "Who are you? Wait, what?" But at the same time, it's been great being home. But after 30 years of constantly being moving and touring, it was weird to sort of park it at home. So,
could you see it when like touring full time does kind of come back? You see it being weird going back on the road?
I flew back to visit my folks, once everybody was vaccinated and stuff, because, when COVID happened, it was sort of like you weren't sure if you were ever going to see the people you loved again, because you weren't allowed to be there, if they were passing or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So when my folks once everybody got vaccinated, I flew out with my son to visit with them, and, fully masked, and plane was completely full, and it was weird. The thing that was sort of weird to me was not that I was flying during COVID. It was just looking around going, I used to do this every day. This sucks. Just crowded planes and baggage and that was the part that got me, was like, wow, it's crazy to think about going back to doing all that again. Yeah.
Yeah, when you're removed from it, because like I feel like a normal person, like, hey, well, yeah, it doesn't travel like that. They go, wow, that's insane. Whereas if that's just the norm for you for 30 years, like it's not until you probably take that step back and go, oh wow, like that is wild. Like people don't really do that. People don't, you know what I mean? Like people don't really travel like that for their job, really.
No, it reminded me, as I sat there having not done it for a year and a half, it reminded me like airport touring, at least touring with Storm, because we're not driving or in a bus or whatever, we're flying everywhere. That's the commute. You just got to get up early and get to the airport, and you just do it, and it sucks. And then you get to the gig and it's all good. And then next day, 4:30 lobby call, so you can get to the airport. And you become sort of numb to it in a way where it's just what you do, and you can function with no sleep and doing all that stuff. But having had a year off, to go back to it seemed really abnormal. It was like, what? This is crazy. Like, all these people sitting in this tube that's going to take off into the air and fly somewhere. This is insane. This is crazy, So it was a different approach for me, because I've been lucky enough to where, I haven't had to deal with not doing that since 1994 or whenever I joined Everclear. So.
Now, like you said, you do a lot of flying and stuff out now. Do you miss it all? Like van or tour bus tours, like anything where you're on the road, or was that too grueling after a while? Just constantly being driving hours and hours.
I think I can't imagine doing it now because it just seems so exhausting. But and with Everclear, it was all a blur. But when I was with the Oohlas, it was fun. It was fun we bought a van. And also, like I said, Ollie had never really been in a band or hadn't really toured before. And so it was fun sort of seeing it all through her eyes. But it was fun for me just getting back to that thing after, people are like, what's it like being in the van after tour buses and semi trucks and all that stuff? And I had the time of my life when the Oohlas toured. It was, I've had a lot of fun moments in my life, but that was a lot of fun, and just showing up and playing bars and getting paid our $60 at the end of the night. And, being excited that they gave us salad with our pizza, that was like, whoa, this is a luxury. And that we got bottled waters backstage or something. It was fun to go back and do it all again, but on my own terms, not with Everclear, and so, but to do it now, to jump back in a van and drive all over the country and do it, all that stuff, I gotta say, it doesn't really appeal to me. Doesn't appeal to me.
I can't blame you. I feel like, and that sounds fun to me. I love driving all around, but I get, you do it for 30 years and you're doing it for that long. It's like, I can imagine after a while, it's like, because it really is, because even like you just talking about it, it's like, you start thinking about it. I mean, what's a show? 90 minutes, 2 hours, yet you're flying all these places. You're there's so much else that you're doing just to get to that place to play on the stage for however long you're playing, that people kind of forget about too.
Yep. It's all part of it. It's, yeah. And it, I mean, with Everclear, it was different. We had road manager, tour manager, and people that took care of all that stuff. But because they took care of all that stuff, that meant that they could cram more stuff into the schedule. So it meant that you're traveling more and more and more. And, that was fun times. That was exciting, when you're 24, 25, 26, 27. But to think of doing that now, no. I just,
no, thank you.
No. Well, if someone wants to give me $150,000 to go out and promote this record, I would go do it. But well, maybe I wouldn't. Maybe I'd just take the $150,000. But I just, whatever. People are like, the Rolling Stones still tour, and I'm like, yeah, that's because they all have private planes and they don't see each other until they're on stage.
Oh yeah, that's a whole different way of touring. Yeah, if you're the Rolling Stones, normal bands don't tour that way.
Right. So that's real easy to. Yeah, hell, I would tour with I would do that. I would do that with Everclear if we got paid for the same amount of money and I didn't have to talk to anybody and I could just be, in my private plane or bus or whatever.
Like, who wouldn't? Yeah, in that situation, like, yeah, you would. Like, anyone would.
Exactly. So I don't know. I've been extremely blessed having the opportunities that I've had and the experiences I've had, and so it's tough to find fault with any of it because it's been an amazing journey. And but just being at this point in my life, the idea of jumping into a van and logging, 60,000 driving miles, no. I'd rather go fishing across the river in Wisconsin and do that instead.
I don't blame you. Do that, and there's enough good venues in the Twin Cities. People can come. It'd be one of those things. People want to see you, then come to you. There's venues in Minneapolis. You'll be there.
Yeah, I'm around.
I'm around. Well, Greg, I mean, this is a blast. It's always fun having you on here. As we close this one up, I mean, the main thing here, where people can go grab Muffled Tears, where people can find you, all that good stuff now. Like now that people have heard it all, they want to go find you. They want to hear the music. What do they go do?
Wow, this is the part I'm really bad at. Well, obviously, they can find it on all the digital stuff, iTunes and Spotify and all of that stuff. But if they want the vinyl, they've got to come to my Bandcamp page. So that's what is that? Greg Eklund.
I think it's bandcamp.com/Greg Eklund probably. I think that's normally how they're set up.
Oh, good. Thank you for that because yeah, I told you I'm terrible at it. But
though also on Bandcamp, the nice thing too, people just go search Greg Eklund, you'll come up, which I'm also going to say, I stress you go grab it there because I think that's where you get paid the most. They compensate artists the best of all places. Bandcamp is the most artist-friendly place. For
sure, and you can buy it digitally there, I think too. But
yeah, you can.
That's where I'm just running the vinyl. And thanks for knowing that address because I am not very good at it. And then I think there's a YouTube page if they want to see the videos and stuff. But I think he's just the drummer.
Yes, I think that and maybe your Twitter. I know some places if you search he's just the drummer, you're on there. I think on Twitter and Instagrams he's just the drummer.
Yeah, that's probably the best. I'm sort of using that as my all thing production stuff. Like he's just the drummer records and all of that stuff. So that's a good place to type in and find me because I'm around.
You'll pop up. Yeah, you're around. I'm around. You're a busy man. You don't need to be on. You're doing things. You don't need to be on social media. You're doing like 5 different things. You stay quite busy.
I know, but my wife is like, you gotta be on social media more, which is
I mean, she might be kind of right, but still, I say you're busy.
I'm not. I don't like to look at social media either, so it's just weird for me, this concept of trying to like constantly self-promote. But yeah, I'm doing it. And if you're going to buy the record, I'll be down in my basement taping it up and sending it out. So it's not coming from someone else. It's coming from downstairs.
Locally sourced vinyl.
That's right. Yeah.
You even have those nice hand stamps. You do a very cool. At least my record when it came, he's just the drummer. The snare drum stamp on the front of the package, which I got a kick out of.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just figured I'd zip it up a little bit.
Class it up.
Yeah, trying to.
No, I like it. I mean, it's not too hard to find you. You're at the normal places, and Muffled Tears is all around. The Oohlas, Everclear. You can find everything you've been involved in just about anywhere. You'll find all that good stuff. Yep.
Hey, let me quickly shout out. Ollie's thing is Ollie Problemas. That's her.
Oh, okay.
Not her record, but that's her. If people want to look her up, which I highly suggest, I think she's amazing. I've been so lucky that I've gotten to work with people like her and people like Storm. And there was a woman that I played with in LA called Julie Kane that I can give a huge shout out. I've always been really lucky to work with extremely talented women. So I want to be able to give shout outs to people when I can and when I can remember.
We can always in the show notes, man. I'll throw a link and stuff to your record. I'll look up Ollie's new record too. We can throw a link in like the show notes so people can go.
Thank you.
They won't have to go Google all this shit. It'll just be right there. They can click the button and it'll go there.
Oh, you're so smart, dude. You're so social media. That's amazing. That would be so helpful. Thank you.
That's what I'm here, dude. You're busy making the stuff.
I'm trying.
No, you have a lot of it's great to hear this stuff. I mean, it was awesome last time. I mean, the first time we had you on, I mean, at first we were talking about Sparkle and Fade for its 25th anniversary, and then it turned out you had like all these I mean, I knew you were working on stuff, but like did not know how much stuff you were working on at once. So it's always good to hear when you're that busy, you know? That's not a bad thing. You stay busy. You stay busy making cool things. I enjoy the output.
Well, thank you very much. I'm trying.
And you're around.
And I'm around. You know, if anybody needs me, I'm around.
Well, this has been a blast. We're going to play a bunch of songs off Muffled Tears, which I cannot recommend enough. But like I said, we'll play a bunch for you. We're going to start. I don't know. This might be one of my favorite songs on the album. I am also a sucker for a good bass line, and I think you got a good bass line in this one. So we'll kick it off with Shine On off Greg Eklund's Muffled Tears right here on the Power Chord Hour. Right here on the Power Chord Hour off Greg Eklund's Muffled Tears. That was Chain Wallets. Before that was She Came. Before that was Liberation. And opening up that block of music was Shine On. I want to thank Greg again for returning to the show. Had so much fun with him. I mean, I really like that. I've been waiting for that since the last episode because, you know, we're like, oh yeah, you'll definitely come back on when you release that. And here we are like a year and a half later. And very, very rad. So, again, want to thank him. And definitely go check out his new record. I mean, you just heard 4 songs off of it. I absolutely love it. He really has this his voice is perfect for like that like indie rock, kind of like alt rock that he does. Like same with the Oohlas. Like if you like that and you've never checked out the Oohlas, go back and check out Best Stop Pop. Their only record that's out for now. But like we were talking about, we'll get a new Oohlas record eventually, but if you go listen to that first one, I think you'll hear what I'm talking about. Like he's very good at it there too, and just musically, like, you know, writing the songs, but also his voice, I think works very well with the music that he writes. So very cool, very happy to hear that come out too. He sent me, it was like last year, he sent me an unmastered some MP3s from the record, and it was all sequenced and everything. Like it's the record you hear now is just unmastered, but I absolutely loved it then. I was like, oh dude, you definitely like this needs to be out in the world. Like definitely, you know, like I hope you're listening to everyone who's telling you, like definitely release this. And I'm happy that he did, because it is a really good record. So go support him. Go grab it wherever you grab music. But again, Bandcamp is like the most artist friendly. So I always say if you're gonna go somewhere, I would go Bandcamp first if it's there, and it is there as well as the vinyl. And I can tell you, I can attest, because I bought the vinyl, and the vinyl looks really good. So if you want that on record, you can go grab that as well on his Bandcamp. And yeah, I'm sure he'll be back. I mean, he stays so busy, like, and like he really does. Like on this one, you know, I mean, obviously, again, former Everclear drummer, was their drummer through, you know, the huge years and everything. And, you know, we touched on it a little bit, Everclear, but it's like he stays busy doing stuff. It's like, you know, it's not really, you know, initially we had him on talk about Sparkle and Fade the first time, but it's like, I love that he does, you know, he has stayed active. He is not like, oh, you know, I used to do music and stuff. It's like, oh no, like he continued long after Everclear, has continued to have a really fruitful and like diverse music career too. That's what I like, is like he really, no band that he's been in is like no two are the same. You know what I mean? Like everything he does is kind of different from one in the other. But yeah, really cool. I love talking to him, and I'm sure he will be back either for that. And again, like take your pick. Be back for the Oohlas record whenever that comes out, for maybe his next solo record he was talking about, maybe when that comes out, when the documentary comes out. I mean, there's tons of reasons to have him on, so I'm sure he'll be back. He's truly a fun guest. And when I say that, I truly mean he's like one of the easiest people to talk to. Could talk to him for hours, which I guess I have, because I think collectively both episodes we've done, I mean, I think that has to be close to at least 4.5 hours if you listen to both of them. And that means he is a pleasure to talk to. If he wasn't, he wouldn't be back, and we would not talk as long as we have. So yeah, thank you so much for checking it out. Hope you enjoyed. We have tons more guests this month. I'm very happy we got to kick off the month with Greg, and he was my first interview back since coming back from my little 3-week vacation. But yeah, really, really excited for what we got planned for the rest of the month and really the rest of the year. We have a lot of cool stuff planned. I would say the rest of the year, a lot of stuff to tune into. But I am going to keep next week's guest a surprise for now. But I will tell you, you may be a fan. If you were if you're a fan of this week's guest and his music, I think you may be a fan of next week's as well. And actually another drummer. And very excited for it, and you'll have to tune back in and see who it is. Though maybe also you can probably check on our social media. I'll probably tease it before then. But yeah, and speaking of our social media, if you want to follow us on there, we're at Power Chord Hour on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Instagram. If you'd follow us all on all those places or wherever you are. And we're also on Spotify in 2 ways. We're on Spotify, which we put up playlists every week from the radio show. So you can go find us on there. And you can also find the podcast on Spotify if you're not listening there already. And, where else are we? What else to check out? The radio show, the Power Chord Hour radio show. Been doing it 5 years strong now, every week on WRFA 107.9 FM in Jamestown, New York. And that airs every Friday night, 10 to midnight Eastern. And if you don't live in Jamestown, that is okay. We are but a city of like 30,000. So I'd assume a lot of you don't live in Jamestown. I'd assume most of you don't live in Jamestown. So if you want to listen, don't fear. Just go. You can go to WRFALP.com. And if you can either go there and click streaming, or if you want to make it even easier, throw in WRFALP.com/streaming, and it'll take you right to the thing. You can stream the station, listen to all the other rad shows, and or listen to mine. And yeah, play a lot of music, play lots of Greg's music, Everclear, the Oohlas, now his solo stuff, and all that good stuff. You can find some good music on there every Friday night. And yeah, I guess that would be it. Rate and review us if you would on Apple Podcasts or anywhere else you can rate and review podcasts. I have no clue because I'm very bad at paying attention to that stuff. But if you know of a place to leave us reviews there, and hopefully they're glowing. But hey, I can't tell you what to write. So yeah, again, hopefully they're glowing, but I can't tell you what to do. And yeah, so that's going to be the show. Thank you so much again. Thank you so much to Greg. Tune back in. We got another one next week. Oh, and if you would like Power Chord Hour stickers, powerchordhour@gmail.com. Got some new ones recently. Now we have 2 different designs. I'll send you a couple of each for absolutely free. I must say, I had a lot of fun when I was hanging out with someone who's been on the show a ton, Zach Gorszewski, my buddy, who I went and hung out with on my trip, and stopped and hung out with him for a few days in Springfield, Illinois. We when we went down to St. Louis, we definitely went around the city sticking Power Chord Hour stickers on things. And I gotta shout out Zach or reprimand him because he was a bad influence, because he definitely was an influence to do that, and I'm blaming him. But yeah, you can go do the same thing. Doesn't have to be go wherever you live. Just go paint the town with Power Chord Hour stickers. It would be a beautiful, beautiful thing. And think of what a great service you're doing to your community by passing on this podcast. I mean, think of it. Think of the senior citizens that's hearts will glow. The children that will smile and learn about good music and not grow up with shitty taste. Like, just think of all the good you can do for your community if you stick these Power Chord Hour stickers all over things. So hit me up, powerchordhour@gmail.com. I'll send you some stickers. You can also just hit me up there for anything. If you ever want to be like, hey, good podcast, bad podcast, you should talk to this person. Hey, I want to request a song for your radio show. Any of that stuff, that's where you can find me, powerchordhour@gmail.com, as well as all our social media. I run all that, so if you're talking to someone on there, you're talking to me. But yeah, that is going to be it until next week. So for the Power Chord Hour, I'm Anthony Merchant. Thanks for listening.